We're so back, ladies and gentlemen, because it turns out that making a small-scale and wonderful tale in Westeros is a great recipe. It's refreshing finally leaving more dour perspectives, and the show establishes an upbeat vibe. It's not perfect, I have one minor reservation, which we can address that hot topic first because it happens to open the episode. There's been a lot of unrest about the Dunk pooping situation, which feels surreal to say out loud, and I think this kind of negatively initiates a form of comedy, which is slapstick.
Moments later, Dunk shits water.
Hopefully people forgive us.
To preface any critique here, the show is of course supposed to be more lighthearted and contains humor. I think everything else in the episode works very effectively because it feels more natural. It's not jarring or shocking, but fun charisma and banter. That's why Duncan and Egg, as an example, are so alluring. An insolent, observant, and smart squire paired with someone who isn't as quick-witted, and any attempts at joshing Egg around for his disobedience is checked by Dunk's inherent virtuousness, leading to their infectious and fun chemistry. Their dichotomy because of this is very unique because the general stigma for a knight and squire can entail a toxic power dynamic where the squire fears stepping out of line. Egg doesn't have that fear, opening an avenue for these characters to build a deep, binding relationship.
I kicked his ass in Mario Kart so many times.
So, shifting back to the topic of tone, going even further past more grounded humor with slapstick, I think pushes the show a bit too far. Although, not all the examples of slapstick in the episode were bad. Dunk hitting his head multiple times directly and naturally synergizes with the point of development for body confidence. For the first instance though, I think it was too abrupt and can give off the wrong message where the creators are taking a shit on the Game of Thrones opening. The meta angle is interesting in how it's declaring it's different, but for one of the first things we see, it's a bit much. Additionally, for the opening, this is supposed to be pretty somber. Dunk just lost his lifelong mentor. Adding comedy here undercuts that strong emotional character beat for Dunk. I feel like just letting the scene breathe with a long take on him would be better, and I can see an argument being made that the creators want to squarely establish the tone in this scene. However, you already established that with Dunk's optimistic nature of him talking to his horses. And this is good writing where it simultaneously acts as character building, exposition, and it sets a foundation for the tone as well. It's just, after looking at some interviews, the creators seem to want to push the show into an area of absurdity.
There's going to be this slightly absurd sense to this world.
I partially disagree with the sentiment because you can still have a show that's lighthearted and comedic without having absurd moments, especially since the dramatic stakes get quite high in this story, so I don't want the creators to compromise anything with misplaced absurd humor. Moving away from the topic of tone, since we're within the scene that contains a flashback, I like the trend now that we're actually okay with using them. It's mostly been used as brief cutaway gags so far, but I hope Era Parker is receptive to including longer flashbacks. That's something the main series did like once, despite David and Dan condemning them, and Game of Thrones as a world is rich with history and crazy events. For Night of the Seven Kingdoms, this series presents an opportunity for the writers to explore more in-depth flashbacks when they're narratively relevant. Which for the Sworn Sword, or what will be the show's second season, there'll be some great opportunities for some exciting flashbacks. Another positive that blissfully shines through in the opening is this show looks incredible. The locations, wide-sweeping vista shots, and the general color correction is more vibrant, obviously to further communicate the more colorful tone of the show. Addressing the overall writing so far, this is honestly a great example for what an adaptation should be. The writers are simultaneously using the text right off the page, but are also further fleshing out areas that the novella didn't have time to cover. We're in an interesting realm where the show actually has more time than the book, when usually it's the other way around where creators have to make sacrifices and cuts to the source material. Like, easily the best scene of the episode was the entire Lionel Baratheon talk and dance. This is a character that didn't get to have this development in the book, and this greatly fleshes him out. Like, maybe George was a bit hesitant for these two to meet, because the likelihood of someone of Lionel Baratheon's status talking to Dunk is very unlikely unlikely, but the writer's justification for starting the scene was clever. A very tall and imposing force who doesn't have a confident posture is not something you normally see. A lot of knights with those attributes are brash and have a big ego. Dunk inherently betrays that stigma, making him someone that's intriguing to Lionel. Now, their actual dialogue was riveting, very much highlighting Dunk's more obtuse nature and imbuing tension with Lionel questioning him about why he's here. And Dunk just saying he's hungry and everyone diffusing and laughing is exactly the right tone. Build up, payoff, it's grounded, fun, and not jarring at all. Dunk's awkward hop dance as well was peak. Man is just so wholesome and I love him. Daniel Ings, who plays Lionel, says in this scene that he wanted the dance to feel like he was starting a storm, and this overall moment is packed with developments that are purely driven by actions, which I think is really neat from a directing perspective. Then the scene goes even deeper where these characters get closer and have a more personal dialogue scene, further emphasizing the core themes of honor by declaring that it's noble to take on this great challenge. And of course, I do want to address Lionel as a character. The show here paints him as being more electric and exuberant, which is really cool. We don't get enough information to paint a detailed, cohesive picture of him in the novella, and my mind always went to like a prime Bobby B who laughs even more, but Lionel's depiction in the show is a ton of fun, and the actor also brings a lot to the table.
Sure. But so are you. Sure.
Lionel exiting the scene is the perfect end, and I love the subtle background joke of his antlers hitting the chandelier. This 7-minute long original scene was excellent, introducing a character that you immediately love. It contains small fun moments of humor, there's depth, pacing changes, and even the filmography is inspired with the camera incorporating into the dance. This scene is proof that the show's creators really have the sauce when it comes to fleshing out and elevating George's work, and I hope they can keep this up. Another key scene is Dunk talking to the Master of Arms, and there are a few changes here that are interesting. When Dunk says that Sir Arlen intended on him being a knight, the creators cast doubt on this with this brief flashback.
Am I to be a knight one day, sir? As you are?
I like this change because it adds some nuance and grayness to his relationship with Sir Arlen, while also fulfilling the narrative function of humor. The second one is the joke of the Master of Arms scaring Dunk by making him think he'll probably be executed if he can't prove he's a knight. Really lends to and sets up Dunk's naivety, and the fake out was well executed. The creators again are fleshing things out, bringing more character to the Master of Arms, when the scene was initially a brief stop in the novella that felt more like a formality and just setting up Dunk's objectives. The Fossaways explode onto the scene, and Raymond looks very similar to Podrick, my beloved. I love the detail that Stefan Fossaway figures out that Dunk is a hedge knight from the phrasing of this line.
That's a longsword you wear?
Yes, it is mine by right.
It's an odd thing to say.
And the puppet show was a nice little excursion of spectacle, giving some fans their much needed fix of wanting to see dragons. Going into some wider positives, HBO always spares no expense when it comes to production design. They full-on built an entire 360-degree set to make this world as immersive as possible, which makes sense because the vast majority of the story takes place in this location. I was even shocked to learn that they built a real bridge across a small river here. Just really goes to show how authentic and tactile the creators want this world to feel. The music this time around isn't composed by Ramin Djawadi. It's okay guys, calm down, because Dan Romer, who's the composer here, fills in excellently, incorporating the guitar into the soundtrack, which further boosts the warm vibes of the show. The ending song in the credits with the sentimental violins is also stellar, really ends the episode on a nice satisfying high. Then for the casting of Dunk, everyone is pretty much on the same page in that this is perfect casting. Tone of voice, posture, mentality, delivery, everything is very authentic to Dunk the Lunk, along with Peter being able to nail the more emotional moments for his character. Egg as well so far leaps off the page, as people always say. He's definitely good in the couple scenes we see him in, and I'm looking forward to more of his time with Dunk. But diving into Dunk as an overall character, I find him very intriguing from a conceptual standpoint because he's perfectly manufactured to be deeply endearing. He's honorable, has a captivating underdog drive given his status as a hedge knight. He deals with dire stakes, making it to where you're very invested in wanting to see him succeed. He's persistent and doesn't give up, and also represents innocence with his personality. Like, that final moment with Egg is the special tender core of this show. Ira Parker mostly perfectly captures that, and for an opening episode, this pilot does everything it needs to do. The reception is already incredibly high, which is impressive because this episode is basically straight build-up, but the creators make all of it entertaining. Any exposition feels natural and well integrated, it's well paced, and the original dialogue from the book and new lines from the show mix seamlessly and nothing stands out negatively. If you loved the first episode, it only gets better from here, as I think the last half of the story is iconic, going in an unexpectedly fun direction. Thanks for watching, and I'll probably keep covering each episode. They do get shorter than the first one, so there's not a whole lot to review, but we'll see. If you want to discuss the show with me or anyone, I have a Discord for that. I have ratings for movies on Letterboxd, and my Patreon link is in the description. Thanks to my wonderful top patron, Logan Farmer.